Welcome to Windows on the World with me, Mark Windows, bringing you cutting-edge news, empowering information and no conspiracy theories. Tonight we're going to be talking to James Gilliland of ECETI, and on his site it states an unprecedented event is unfolding in a small town known as Trout Lake, Washington. This event has the potential to change the course and destiny of humanity on Earth. The people of Earth are being offered a chance to join the rest of the universe in peace. So, James, welcome to Windows on the World.
Oh, good to be on the show.
Well, it's great to talk to you. Can you give me a bit of your background and how this ranch came into being?
Wow, it's a long story. Basically, what happened was I was actually teaching classes, intersensitivity training classes and self-mastery classes in Santa Cruz, California. And I kept having dreams and visions of this beautiful ranch and this mountain and river, you know, on the eastern border and everything. And I kept seeing it over and over again, but I didn't know where it was. So I found a map of the United States and I used a pendulum and divined exactly where it was. And what's interesting is that I actually kind of tossed the map in the back of my closet and forgot about it. And then I ended up here anyway, you know, through a lot of synchronistic events. I ended up here anyway. And when I found the place, you know, that I was looking for, I kept going by the visions, just following the visions. And when I found this place, I went back to move my things back, and I pulled the map out, and it was exactly where I marked it on the map. So, you know, kind of the universe takes you where you need to go anyway. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, and that definitely does happen. These synchronicities are there if you're open to them.
Exactly.
So can you tell us what ECETI stands for?
Well, it stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And what I found out was that, you know, there's all these UFO groups out there, and it seems like they just weren't having any luck. You know, every once in a while somebody would stumble across a ship or have a camera when one was flying over, but there's never any consistency in it. And you know, I realized that these beings, you know, especially with the technology they have got to be very, very advanced, and they'd most likely be spiritually advanced as well, or they wouldn't, you know, they would have blown themselves up by misuse of technology. So anyway, I started just reasoning this out and thinking about it, and I started building this center as a retreat center. It wasn't for UFOs. It had nothing to do with UFOs. It was a healing retreat center, and doing process-oriented therapy and deep, you know, meditation techniques and things of that nature. And then what happened halfway through building this center, they contacted me in an all-day meditation, and that's when I realized these beings were like extremely advanced. So it stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and on your path to enlightenment, they'll find you. You know, and so when we clean up our act and get our act right, they will, you know, find us along the way. But we have to transcend all cultural and religious boundaries and get beyond that into unity consciousness and focus more in that area, and then we're ready, you know, ready to work with them.
So that's very interesting in the respect of you believe then in a kind of channeled information. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, actually, this is nuts and bolts. I mean, we have incredible photographs of the ships, you know, physical ships. We have giant cylinder ships, pyramids, triangular ships, just every color ship you can imagine. and beautiful videos of these ships flying in treetop level, massive light ships coming in, you know, treetop level, some even below treetop level, you know, flying between the trees. So there's a massive amount of evidence. I just spoke at Joshua Tree at Contact in the Desert, and there was about, I don't know, they said they had 2,000 people there. But, you know, I did the intention experiment out in the amphitheater, and people took photographs, and there was just massive orbs all around me. There was a massive one right in front of my head. And then they also got a lot of ships above me. You know, people saw a lot of ships above me. So it's kind of like all the above. It's not, you know, that's why it's an enigma here, because we cover all the aspects of contact, not just nuts and bolts. You know, some people want to say it's all negative. You know, some people want to say it's all positive, you know, and some people want to say it's just back engineered, you know, government stuff. And then other people, you know, say it's time travel, you know. And so what's interesting is that they're all right, because it's all going on. You know, we can't, you know, pigeonhole this into any one box. But what's sad is a lot of people have, you know, a piece of the pie or a slice of the box, and they think they have the whole box. And so there's a lot of competition and little cooperation, which is sad.
I think that's the way that the human brain has been compartmentalized. And that also brings me on to other subjects which I find fascinating. The idea that maybe we are being influenced or controlled by something off-planetary. Now, it's interesting that you're saying that, yeah, there are good and bad elements within this. You seem to be offering a kind of a glimpse into off-planetary intelligence that's entirely positive. Do you think that has anything to do with your previous belief system?
No, actually, I was trained in dealing with negative influences and healing unseen negative influences and mastering your own consciousness. And so I had extensive training in that. And so we teach people how to heal unseen negative influences and create a safe space, you know, to open up in. So it's a pretty balanced approach, actually. You know, we cover both sides of the element, but the benevolent side is a lot more vast. And you know, I'm really hoping that people will lean more in that direction, working with the more benevolent energies and the ones that are more like us, and the ones that, you know, have love and joy and bliss in their consciousness, because, you know, we really need to align with those energies, because the other energies, they have been creating chaos here, and they have been, you know, ruling through some pretty crazy techniques and energies. And, you know, a lot of people call it the Archon network. I actually wrote a book that covered the Archon network back in '82, but and now that's very popular. But there are some regenerative ETs. There's some more kind of demonic type energies, some pretty gross energies that certain elite have actually done ceremony to and work with and call in, and that has been a major dominating force on the earth right now. But that whole network and that whole grid is being torn down, you know, by the benevolent ETs. They're kind of putting an end to tyranny in this againstness program, and, you know, trying to align the earth back into unity consciousness with the original ideal of what it was created for.
These negative energies, or Archons, they seem to take over people very easily if they're not consciously positive. If people aren't consciously positive, these negative energies can seem to take hold of people. And I've always found that very fascinating, and people's susceptibility to negative energies, but also the transformation of people through negative energies to become so-called possessed. I've studied this for quite a number of years, and I think the thing a lot of people have with the ET thing is that because a lot of it is extra-dimensional, it's very hard for them to latch onto. The thing with the Archons I find absolutely fascinating. Having read quite a lot of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, there's some very strange paragraphs in there. They're very well spread out, because a lot of the Nag Hammadi scriptures are the usual thing about the search for purity, and are kind of it's the kind of glimpse of what the Catholic Church made original sin that is there, as though we're somehow imperfect and we have to perfect ourselves. But there is several passages in there which are very interesting about the way that maybe we have been controlled. For instance, on the rulers of the world mold Adam, it said 7 Archons have formed humanity with a body resembling their own body, but the likeness of humankind reflects the human being who appeared to them. The modelled body came into being part by part from each of the rulers, and the leader of the rulers created the brain and marrow. Now that really goes into this whole idea of genetic modification and control of the human race. What do you think of that?
Well, there has been a lot of manipulation in both directions, in a positive direction and in a negative direction. So it depends on who's doing the manipulation. A lot of, like the Greys, a lot of people are having contact, with different types of Greys. And I think there's right now, from last time I heard, there's like 156 different species of Greys. And some are pretty nasty, and some are just little biological robots doing whatever whoever's controlling them is asking them to do. And it depends on who's in control of them as to what you're going to experience. If there are some more benevolent beings in control of the Greys, then you'll have a different experience. So, and some of the Greys are they're self-conscious. Some are not. Some are just little robots. And it's such an enigma. The whole thing is hard to nail down. But what I go by is your inner sensitivity. If we develop our own inner sensitivity, and if we're using a lot more of our brain, and we're fully present in our body, then these other beings can't just step in. And they always step in through. There's an old saying that evil's invited, and I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, but what I see is that people are focused on the negativity, and their whole focus is on the first 3 chakras, survival, sex, and power. They're easily manipulated because those guys own those 3 chakras. They know how to completely manipulate people through those 3 chakras, and you can use the media, as a good example. Survival, sex, and power. They keep people in fear. They keep people in survival. Everything has to do with sex on TV. It's like, and it's all to sell their product. If you drink the right beer, drive the right car, you'll get the sexy blonde in the bikini. It's just that whole program is all to lock people into the first 3 chakras. But when you move up into the heart and into the higher chakras, you start moving out of their grasp, and they lose control over you. And then you start seeing the whole network. You see the whole game and how it's played. And once you understand it and you see it, it has much less hold over you, and eventually it has no hold whatsoever.
Now, that's very interesting, because obviously we think of this manipulation coming out of the advertising industry and people like Edward Bernays. But again, from the Nag Hammadi, there's a quote on the origins of the world, the creation of humankind. This again hints at some kind of manipulation in the background. It says, if you do not want him to be able to ruin our work, let us create a human out of the earth in the image of our body, and with a likeness to this being to serve us. Then he will fall in love with his likeness. Then he will no longer ruin our work, and we shall make the children of the light our slaves for this entire age. And that hints again at this, how easily manipulated we may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because I don't know, in reading that and then knowing the history, and there's so many, it's like the Anunnaki program, a lot of people just take the Anunnaki and put them in the Archon box, and it's not really the case. And what's happened is, in our history, there was a lot of genetic manipulation, and the Anunnaki were involved in that. And some of it was benevolent, and some of it was malevolent. And you had Enki, who was the all-loving creator god that just loved his creations and kept upgrading them. And then you had Enlil, which was the jealous, wrathful god that just wanted to do away with the experiment and destroy, the civilization. And so right there you have the the origin of the, the all-loving, all-forgiving God, and then you have the all-jealous, wrathful God, which our religions are split upon, in the middle. So you also have a group that never got involved in all this, that operate under universal law, and they didn't fall, and they're actually returning right now and doing a lot of recall work and cleaning up the mess. So one of the beings that was in these turf wars down on the Earth, which used atomic weapons and everything, they're fighting amongst themselves. Found the woman of man to be fair and took them as wives, and there was all this interbreeding going on and all this other stuff. Well, one of the ones that really got involved and made a mess of things was Marduk, and he was the one that opened the door to allegiances with some reptilian beings and some greys and some regenerate ETs. And ever since then, the world's been a mess, and we're still dealing with that mess right now. So it's kind of like, when we understand our real history and look at this, there's just much more to the story. And I feel really good about now is that the age that we're in right now, because of the alignment with galactic plane and other influences coming in, these huge waves coming through the planet right now, is that this negative agenda, or these beings that are no longer frequency specific to where the Earth is evolving to, their day is up, their time is up, and they're squirming and creating as much chaos as possible on the way out. But they are on the way out, and they're the ones responsible for most of the disease and the war and the poverty and all the other nonsense going on the planet.
There is a sense of that happening, and I think in some ways it is true. We're going to take a short break now, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Got a warrant to search for and remove you from your place of residence, and have they also arrested your wife? Is that right?
That's right, they did it.
We have in the studio David Compan, NHS electrician just released after being sectioned under the Mental Health Act. If you weren't with anybody, you'd have just disappeared. Nobody would know where you are, and you can be detained indefinitely.
That's right. Thank you very much for all your support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Our next guest, Nasrin, was evicted from her own property. This was due to a management company issuing charges which she disputed.
The lady called for assistance from the police, and she's now been arrested, handcuffed, took out of her own home.
The student loans, the debt book has been sold. All of what we've talked about is coming your way.
Sergeant?
Have a seat. I don't actually necessarily go into a police station at this time.
What has she been arrested for?
Well, that video was very shocking because Nasrin was actually peacefully occupying her own property, and she was arrested for breach of the peace in her own house.
It's very painful to watch, because in that instance I realised something terrible is happening in this country.
We did a show about people getting their doors kicked in by the police on behalf of private interests without proper court warrants, and this is actual fact. This is happening.
It's illegal and it's corrupt. And you have to ask yourself, why are the people who are willing to bust in people's doors, what the hell happened to them?
You actually called me after they were smashing the door down. Yeah. We actually got a phone call into their press office, and first of all they said the police would never do that. However, they've been caught on video doing just that. The second time we called, they said if the police did that, it would be criminal damage. So you've just witnessed criminal damage by the police. James Gilliland, welcome back to Windows on the World. We were talking about the way there's two opposites that may be controlling us are being polarized. Can you expand a bit more on that?
Well, it's kind of, we were talking earlier about, some of the methods that they use, the media and the things like that. It goes far beyond the media. I mean, even Hitler found out fluoride, was great to sedate, the prisoners, and get them to do whatever he wanted. He put a lot of fluoride in the water. But, and now we're doing the same thing. I mean, there's fluoride everywhere now, and, it does nothing. It's toxic, it's nasty, there's no benefits from it whatsoever. And now people are realizing that whoever's idea or whoever's putting this stuff in the water is following the same agenda that Hitler did. And you've got the aspartame and all the food additives. MSG is like beyond ridiculous as far as what it does to your brain. It really messes things up. All of this stuff that they're doing, and there's the water now has like 650 to 800 carcinogens in it, and it's just a big mess. And then we've gone further now into the GMO crops and the other things that, one pig farmer took the GMO corn, fed it to his pigs, and all the males became sterile. And now there's no, and then bacon's gone through the roof right now. I wonder why bacon's becoming so expensive. So, all these things, and then you add the chemtrails on top of that. It's very, very clear that there's a mass assault on humanity. And that is the dark arts, that's the Archons and their puppets. This is their last shot. They're pulling out all the stops and doing everything they can, to have their last round, And the Bible talks about the wars and rumors of wars and all the other stuff coming up to the end days, and that's where we're in. And I think the true definition of Armageddon is the great uncovering. And so all of this is being exposed, it's being brought up into the light, and we're starting to see who's behind, all the genocide and all the wars and everything else that's coming out. It's all over the internet right now, but it isn't coming out in the mainstream, that's for sure, because they own the mainstream. The major corporations own the mainstream news, and they're going to continue to feed you the nonsense and keep you in fear and survival. You should be very, very afraid. There's a killer around the corner, there's a war here, there's terrorists here, all that stuff to just keep control, over the people, and almost all of it's just made up nonsense.
Yeah, I think there's an even deeper aspect to that, because when we're talking about extra-dimensional subjects and energy and vibration, television has a flicker rate of 25 frames per second, which puts you into a hypnotic trance for a start. Mm-hmm. Which means that you're opening yourself up to what we're talking about. So television is an archontic energy, or archon energy, if you like.
Oh, definitely. Early 70s, I threw my TV set out the window, basically.
Why? You're some kind of rock star.
Yeah. I just said, I'm out of here. I can't even look at this crap anymore. I don't know what happened, but I also had a drowning. I had a near-death experience, which I drowned and crossed over, and then hooked up straight up with my own connection with the source. And after that happened, I just could see through all of it. It's like the Matrix crashed, and so it's just like I couldn't even involve myself in watching TV anymore and things like that.
That's very interesting, because the near-death experience is something which obviously radically changes people. And
yeah,
I can only comment on that. I have had a near-death experience when I was much younger, but more recently I've experienced out-of-body experiences, and that is a very profound life changer. I
have photographs that I've actually had people photograph me while I'm going out of body, and you can see actually two bodies, one body leaving the other body, and my eyes are closed in one frame, and then the next frame my eyes are open, and you can see the energy band spinning, and I'm leaving. But it definitely that's a game changer too. And when you become ultra sensitive and you start opening up, you start seeing what's going on. You see the influences and you feel them, and you just get almost a sickening feeling around somebody that's carrying these energies, and they're very threatened by your presence too, and they'll do everything they can to make your life hell, including jumping into those closest to you, friends and family, and in relationships, lovers. They'll those with weak minds who aren't strong enough or aren't on the same frequency, you might say, they can easily manipulate them and just turn on you and just slam you.
I know it has happened to me. And it's happened to me since I started putting out information. And yes, that's a very good analogy of what happens. It's quite shocking, and you see it being played out around you, and you can see that people manipulating situations, and it's very clever, that, because it is a real sort of evil, because a lot of the time it's happening. You can't actually respond, or you look like some kind of lunatic. You know, you look like some paranoid lunatic, but you can see what's happening. It's very frustrating. That yes.
Exactly. And I know people are so tied into their story and their need to be right. And these energies just feed that, and they case build, and they try to build cases to turn you into the bad guy or the evil one. It's just amazing watching it over and over again. And having seen it so much now, I don't give it any energy. I just tell them, I said, well, if this is the path you want to take, you have my blessing, but you need to do it somewhere else. But there's nothing you can do, because you can't really change another person's mind, and you really can't defend yourself in these situations either, because you're buying into the game. And so I just walk away from it. I go, believe whatever you want. I have no attachment to whatever program you want to run, but some programs I won't involve myself in.
I think you also have to see these things play themselves out. There's also a sense of, you see it happening and you know that these people are going to be found out. You know where it's going. You know it's destructive. But in the immediate future, you just have to let it play itself out. Otherwise, you expend enormous amounts of energy trying to stop it, and it's often not worth it. Yeah.
Oh, it isn't. I mean, you could take up your whole life trying to stop it, and that's what I found. It's like when I see it starting, I stop it right there. I just don't engage anymore. As soon as I see it starting and building, I just say, okay, I know where this is going to go, and I'm just not going to participate in it, anymore. So,
yeah,
sometimes give them the opportunity to heal. If they want to heal it, and go forward, I'm totally 100% open to that. But if they want to continue on that path, I just said, well, this is the path I'm not going to go down.
Yeah, I mean, this brings us on to something else, which I think is quite important, is energetic self-defense and keeping up your energy field, because I think a lot of this so-called Archon energy feeds off people whose psyches are damaged. And I think that's a really important thing, that it's almost like something I think should be taught in school,
Yeah, it's like spiritual maturity, like 101, own your stuff, It's like, but it's sad that a lot of people, like you're saying, have been damaged, either through childhood or some other program, that has allowed them to become a part of that network or be deeply entrenched in that network. And once that happens, it's really hard to break out. They keep slipping back into it. And, a lot of times if they had a history of alcoholism or a history of drug abuse or a lot of other things, I mean, that just opens the gates wide open. And when you try to say, hey, you need to chill out on that, you're opening up doors, you're taking the energy down, you're letting things in, they get real defensive and have to defend their habits and their addictions. And so it's like it's just a weird situation. The only thing I know about is that, like you're saying, you have to just gird up yourself, and set up your own defenses and energies, and just say, have fun with that journey.
Yeah, I mean, it is very frustrating when you find these people around you in situations and they do have an impact on your life, and there's very little you can do about it, because a lot of this sort of negative energy is extremely devious, and it's always under the surface, isn't it?
Yeah, and it does. It locks itself in, and that's the sad thing about it. When it does get locked in, it's very hard to get rid of, and people get locked into a program or a belief or whatever else, and it's usually a negative program towards you, or towards the work you're doing. And it becomes a major distraction, or it becomes an inhibitor, to the work. And then you have to become the enforcer and set boundaries and just say, okay, it's like, maybe it's time to go. If you really don't believe in this place, you don't believe in what's happening, then maybe it's time for you to find another place, And what's happening is usually a wake-up call, because, when somebody has everything taken care of, and they have their, their food, their lodging, their, everything taken care of, and then they have to go back out in the other world and start paying, for a house and paying utilities and paying rent and everything else. It's a huge eye opener, for people. And so it's kind of an interesting situation, and I'm learning from it too. I'm learning maybe I need to bring in people that are more sovereign, that have really done their homework, and they are solid in their commitment, to the awakening healing process, 100%, and then go from there. Because here, unfortunately, it's a vortex. It's a really high energy place. It's a stargate, and there's a lot of different beings that would like to control this stargate, and so you've got to be really strong in your own personal connection with Creator, whatever you want to call it, Creator, God, Great Spirit. You got to be real solid in that connection and have the basic universal principles down, or you will be knocked off course.
That's absolutely true. We're really talking about natural law here. I've experienced groups where there is this kind of spiritual positive consciousness, and it definitely does work. Well, it's only common sense that it would. I mean, why wouldn't it? If everybody is kind of harmonious about what they're doing, and there's nobody competing, and everyone's just working together and enjoying it, then it's going to work. And that's where these negative energies come in to disrupt it. And we find this is what I find fascinating about the whole thing. On Earth, there just seems to be this element that's always there trying to attack us.
Yeah, there is. Unfortunately, a lot of people say, well, that's your imagination and you're just being negative or whatever else. And, and that's a program that they've been taught as well. A lot of the New Age teachings have been, you don't acknowledge the darkness. You don't acknowledge any of this stuff. It's, if you see it, then it's in you. And all this, I don't know, they have all these programs to get you not to acknowledge the darkness and not to do anything about it. And that's a manipulation as well. So,
it's a complete manipulation, and I think one of the most dangerous ones, because that is really being controlled by very, very manipulative people. And I think that's one of the biggest traps is this, that, everything will be all right, everything's be as it is. Now, there's certain branches, like, say, Zen Buddhism, is quite interesting in this respect, because what they do is be in the world but not of it. So you have to have this duty of care and basically to look after the day-to-day normality and keep that in very good stead, and also this spiritual side, and they can work together, I think. What do you think about that?
Oh, exactly. We need to do our spiritual work. We have to do our time, in nature and meditation, and learn how to heal unseen negative influences, and constantly be the observer, observe ourselves as well with brutal honesty, and how we're participating in things that might not be of the highest consciousness and energy. So, that's a daily job that we need to work on. And unfortunately, most of mainstream is, people have their nose, stuck to the grindstone. They live in a cubicle, they go to work, they come back, they have a few beers, they flip on the telly, watch a football game or whatever, or watch some victim soap opera thing or whatever movie they're watching, and then go to bed and get up and go to work again. And it's like, where's the time in nature? Where's the time to reflect on how you might be able to do things better, or where you've kind of strayed off the mark or whatever? That it's just not accessible. It's not allowed almost in this nuclear family program that we have.
For a very good reason, because obviously we need to be made compliant slaves by the powers that be, or those that assume that power. Do you think there ever was a golden age on this planet? I mean, what's your thought about that?
Oh, definitely. There's been several golden ages. We've got a history of 650 million years where we've had advanced beings on this planet, and the planet's had to start over. It had a major reset due to meteor impacts and pole shifts and a lot of other things. Even some of the wars that were pretty nasty that erased a lot of the civilization. So we have a long history of having to reset and start over. The temples, when you look at these temples, whoever built these, the pyramids and all these other temples had an incredible degree of wisdom, you know, in what they did. And you know, you can't tell me that was built by slaves with picks and
no,
and round stones, you know?
We are fed a very childlike version of our background, but then again, it comes back to this custodial care thing, which is also the Roman system, which is an administrative system that we live under, which assumes us to be imbeciles and unable to administer our own affairs. But then again, this brings us back to natural law. And natural law, I think, is a very deep thing, which once it's uncovered, that is almost like one of these so-called spiritual quests, in the respect that once you start living under natural law, the whole of the illusion of the system and the manipulation falls away, and you start being able to be completely sovereign within that system. I found that extremely fascinating.
Oh yeah, you know, I was forced to get into that, and because I had 10 court cases here to keep the ranch, and they did everything they could to shut this ranch down, and so I was forced into really studying sovereign law and you know, setting some boundaries here and there, and ended up dismissing like 3 judges, and they just kept coming at me over and over and over, and finally they've kind of given up for now. It's been 1.5 years, and almost 2 years now, and we haven't heard from them. So, but you know, it's amazing, you know, when you start understanding, you know, sovereign law or natural law or universal law or whatever else, and you start standing for it and standing up to it. It's like that network rears its ugly head, and they do everything they can to suppress you and knock you down. And that just, whenever they do that, it makes me go further. It just energizes me. It makes me want to do more, you know, want to learn more, you know, and get more tools under my belt. But yeah, it was quite a journey. And, you know, we're just sitting there going, we just want to be left alone. You know, we just want to aid in the awakening and healing process. You know, we grow our own food here. We're very sovereign. You know, it's a spiritual retreat center, but it's very close to the earth, and we work in harmony with the earth. And I guess that's a major threat to the powers that, I want to call them the powers at work, as they're fast falling apart. But,
well, let's hope so, James. We're going to take another short break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Hello, just want to say a few words about the event at Wembley Arena on October 25th, all day, from about 9:30 in the morning until into the evening. And people would think that, well, I'm sitting there for 8-9 hours, not all at once, by the way, there's plenty of breaks, but they'd think, well, what's he going to say? But the whole point of what I've been doing for the last quarter of a century is connecting dots across a vast range of different subjects, which on the face of it are not connected, but in truth are fundamentally connected. Everything from the nature of reality, the illusory nature of reality. So you can't understand what's happening in the world unless you understand the illusory nature of reality, because you look at things and you say, well, that's not possible because the world's solid. Well, when you realize it's not, well, you realize they're possible, fantastic as they may seem to our, you know, conscious mind. And I go across the whole range of subjects, from the nature of reality, which I go into in great depth, to the force beyond human sight that's actually manipulating our reality, if we only realized it, and into the detail of how the few are manipulating our lives towards an Orwellian state that it actually is designed to be and planned to be well beyond the level and the scale even of Orwell's 1984. And we're seeing it unfolding. I mean, look at it. And at Wembley, I'll explain who's behind it, why it's happening, the techniques used to manipulate us to go in the direction that they want us to, and how wars, manipulated wars, banking scams, GM food, chemicals in water, the manipulation and suppression of the education system, the way the media works, the big pharma, pharmaceutical cartel, the biotech cartel like Monsanto, all these apparently disparate things. Global warming, as they claim, is majorly a part of this whole thing to provide an excuse, a manipulated excuse for many things to happen to change society in the way that they want. So all those things will be in there, but it's not just about the if you like, the conspiracy, the exposure of the conspiracy of what's going on in the world and why. It's also a celebration of life. It's the celebration of the fact that we are infinite consciousness having an experience. We've been manipulated to believe we are the experience. And we give the experience names like David Icke and Joe Bloggs, when in fact what we really are is consciousness, awareness, having that experience. And so there's going to be, particularly in the final section, there's going to be a lot of music, a lot of dance, a lot of drums. We've got Gareth's going to play like he did at Wembley in 2012. We've got a great band coming over from Canada, the Ancient Order. They're going to be playing for us. They're terrific. We've got drumming groups, dancers, and there's going to be a lot of, you know, getting on your feet if you want in that last section as we celebrate life. We celebrate the fact that we are infinite awareness and not just our name, job, life story and you know, apparently our background in the world that we perceive. And we did it in 2012. I mean, these events are a massive financial outlay and risk. And also the amount of, as I'm sure you can understand, the amount of organizing there is to do is tremendous. And from a personal point of view, I'm speaking for hours and hours and hours and hours with about 1,600 images, and the research has to be done on all of them to make sure the facts are right. So it is a tremendous effort to put on. But in 2012, when we did it for the first time, all that effort was worth it, because it was such a fantastic day. When you get people with open minds and open hearts in the same place at the same time, with a desire to make a positive difference in the world, I mean, the energy that generates collectively is absolutely fantastic. And we've got an incredible screen for the images and stuff to be projected on this year. It's real state-of-the-art stuff. I went up to see it recently in Harlow, just north of London, and my goodness, I never knew colour looked like that. It's incredible. So put all that together, and it's going to be a great day. And I hope to see you and share the day with you on October the 25th at the Wembley Arena in London. People came from all over the world last year, or last time. It's 2 years ago. And given that 2 years have passed, you know, my research has moved on and moved on and moved on. So it's deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole than it's ever been before. And I would suggest that anyone's ever been before, if you look at the range of subjects covered and the way they're fitted together. And so there's we're a lot further on than we were in 2012 in terms of information. Like I say, I hope to see people from all over Britain, Europe, and around the world, just as we saw them in 2012, because to bring all those different people together with the same common theme, open heart, open mind, is something very, very special. See you there. Bye.
So James Gilliland, welcome back to Windows on the World. We've just been having a very interesting talk about parapsychology and the control of this planet, and previously we've covered quite a lot of ground. So you say that you're in touch with intelligent beings. That's a very interesting and profound thing in this day and age. So can you tell us a bit more about where these beings are from, do you believe? I mean, we hear about the Palladians. That a lot of, I cover ancient Australia with two guys over there called Stephen and Evan Strong, and they say that this previous culture, there's a previous culture there, it goes back probably they say about 400,000 years, and they say their ancestors were from the Pleiades. Have you anything to say on that? Because this seems to be a worldwide thing, almost so like the Dogon tribe who believe that that they're star people, and it does seem to go around the world. This culture, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. If we know our ancient history, the Earth. I mean, I could tell you a story on the wild side, but maybe later on. But it's hard for people to understand. But when I had my near-death experience and the drowning, all my memories, a lot of memories came back to me. And then one of the interactions I had with these Council of Light, they returned all of my memories to me. So I have memories of living on other planets and other civilizations and what happened there. And the same thing happened to other civilizations that transcended it and dealt with it and had to go to war and ended up becoming victorious over it. And that's what's happening on the Earth right now. But the real history of Earth is, and as I said, it goes back 650 million years. Different beings were coming here and setting up, small groups, like a lot of scientists and things like that, just checking things out here. One of the biggest colonies in history was the Atlantean and Lemurian or Mu colonies. Those two colonies were Palladian. But they had a ship even before that was a terraforming ship that was here. And they brought it in. And in our history, we had one moon, then we had 2 moons, and then we had no moon, and then we had 1 moon again. And which is really interesting. And a lot of these planets or moons are actually terraformers. They're terraforming planets. And so the original destiny of Earth was to become a place where people could evolve to their highest potential, even physical, would evolve to its highest potential. And actually it was supposed to be in Eden, just a beautiful place. And that was the original intent. And so through this terraforming, when they got pretty far into it, a lot of the trees, the flowers, everything are the product of 12 major star nations that were involved in this process. And then they got taken out by some reptilian forces that came in and took over the terraforming planet, and everything just went to hell after that, basically. And so when we understand that history, and then the influences started, the people of Atlantis went into power over others, and technology. They worshiped technology and how they could use their technology to control and dominate others and power over others. And they even went to war on the people of Mu or Lemuria, and with massive beam weapons and things like that. It was a real mess. And the Lemurians had their scientists as well. They were still spacefaring as well, and so they dropped a nice big meteor in on Atlantis, and that's what that was the end of Atlantis. But when we really understand this history of what we've been dealing with, this same thing is being worked out right now. Right now we have this government that, we have these insane scientists. They're doing all they can to control and dominate, the Earth, and they're using their technology and their chemicals and everything else to dumb down and totally turn the people into, neutered zombie robot consumers. Basically, that's their plan. And you have the other groups that are awake and that are realizing this and going, well, we already went there. We already did that and almost destroyed the planet, and we don't want to do that again. And so when we understand that history, and the same thing with if you go back 450,000 years ago when the Anunnaki were here, the same thing happened there, where they had some groups that just wanted to create and be left in peace, and they're part of that creator connection, and then they had other groups that just wanted to dominate and control and wanted to rule, So we keep acting this out over and over again, but I think because of the energies that are coming in now and where the Earth is moving, our whole solar system is moving into a highly energized place in space, where these lower frequencies, this lower conscious energy is not frequency specific to where the Earth is going, and they can't maintain their world. And so this whole Archon network, this whole, rule through power over others, the greed and technology, misuse of technology, all that stuff is collapsing. And it's reaching its height before it just, it falls. And the Hopis have a prophecy where there's 2 worlds. and there's a split that happens, and the people that go for just technology and power of others, and you know, they're not taking their spiritual path, that world goes on a downward spiral and just collapses. It's done. And the people that take the upward spiral are the ones that want to live in unity consciousness. They want to work together in harmony with each other. They cooperate. You know, they're moving in that direction. That world continues. And right now, we're right at the apex of that happening.
That's very encouraging to hear. And I do see signs of that as this whole thing is collapsing. There does seem to be this insane idea to dumb people down through the food supply. And as you were saying earlier, I mean, they're actually talking about putting lithium salts. Well, they're actually going to do it. It's actually in the government documents that lithium salts are going to be put into the water. And I did talk to an expert on this. He said, well, lithium salts are one of the things that can be put into water to basically, it kind of increases the flow through of the contents of the water, the other elements of the water, but it doesn't have to be lithium salt. So why are they using them? You know, but we know why. And
well, they're using rockets. You know, they've been shooting rockets full of lithium up into the sky, just huge batches of lithium. You know, so people are already being exposed to that.
That's exactly right, and we covered that on the show with Soul Sister Sue. She's from Carolina, and she described how NASA sent up this rocket and it blew up in the Earth's atmosphere. This control system that's pulling us into these endless wars now, and this so-called war on terror. And the war on terror is the war on the Earth as much as anything else, I think.
Oh yeah, it's not just genocide. There's another word for it. I forgot what it is. Where it's not just genocide, but you're warring against all creation. You just want pretty much all life to go away. And there are some groups that probably like to see this as a desert wasteland, you know, because that's what they're used to. That's the environment they'd like to live in. But you know, it is, when you really look at it. I mean, I live up in the forest, and I'm watching about 1/3 of the trees dying here. And it's a direct result of the chemtrails, because the aluminum oxide blocks the uptake of water and nutrients, you know, to the trees. And when they have a fire here, because the trees are sprayed with aluminum, the fires just go crazy. I mean, they just burst into massive, uncontrollable rages, you know. So it's just, you know, even the firefighters are saying they've never seen anything like this, and they've never seen a fire move that fast and be that volatile and explosive. So, you know, you really look at it, everything that they're spraying, you know, the barium, the aluminum oxide, the strontium, you know, all those things they're toxic. They're heavy metals. They're accumulative. You know, there's no reason for doing that other than, you know, the duped reason of we're trying to block the sun and cool the earth down, but the earth is already cooling down.
That's right.
And yeah, the earth has its own process. It knows how to cool itself. It's called volcanoes and water evaporation. You know, the earth can cool herself down if they just leave it alone. But, you know, the process that they're trying to say, this geoengineering program, is doing exactly the opposite of what it was intended. And it's having extreme health hazards to the people, you know, down below.
No, it certainly is. And I've covered this on the show quite a few times. My first ever show was about geoengineering. I've looked through all the IPCC documents. I've even been to their talks, and I've heard them pontificating about this, and they're alluding to solar radiation management, stratospheric engineering, geoengineering, and the excuses they give have nothing to do with the reality. And also they're saying that it's not a program that's being actually implemented all over the world. They're saying it's in an experimental stage. Well, if it's in an experimental stage, then this experiment has been going on for quite a long time all over the world.
Yeah, it has. It's everywhere. I mean, you'll see it when you watch any kind of things on the internet. You know, whenever you see photographs or anything of other countries, you go, whoa, look in the background. There's chemtrails everywhere.
Well, they've even started putting them into computer programs now. I think certainly Windows 7 has a chemtrail. Windows 8 seems to as well. And you see them go to the local supermarket and pick up some washing powder. And if you've got a picture of the sky, there's a chemtrail on there as well.
Yeah, you know, and too, you know, you really look about, Gates is heavily involved in this. He's heavily invested in the geoengineering and in the GMO, you know, the modified food. So, he's heavily invested in that.
And also the vaccinations. I mean, we're going to cover that in a show very soon. We have a journalist over here called Christina England who did a major expose of the Chad vaccination scandal, which the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were heavily involved with, the MMR vaccine, etc. They're really into the geoengineering as well. But do you think it's possible that these people have been taken over and they're being used by some evil force which wants to terraform the planet for these strange beings to come back? I mean, this sounds a bit kind of off topic, but there has to be a hierarchy that's overseeing this. Otherwise, it would be total insanity. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, there's a basic premise. A man's character is established by his actions, and a woman too. And we can't deny the actions. We can't deny the results of those actions. I mean, that's science. I mean, that's been determined. So, the bottom line is, and we could go, well, how sane is that? That's definitely insane, to do what they're doing. But and then you take it to the next level. There's who's driving their vehicle. So I just see these people that they reach certain levels of power in these hierarchical programs, and as you move up the hierarchical ladder of power and wealth and whatever, you end up making deals and making agreements. And sometimes those agreements were made even before you climb that ladder. That's how you climb the ladder. And, that's usually done through rituals, through all kinds of things. And they make deals with these dark spirits, the Archons. They make these deals, and so they do flourish. They're very wealthy and they have a lot of power, but they've lost their soul.
That's right, and a lot of this is about initiation into these groups like Freemasons. I mean, because obviously as you progress up that, it's reading about Freemasonry, you realise that each degree is a further compromise. It's basically a further compromise of who you really are. And corporations do this all the time. You see people who've really sold their souls because they've been on a hamster wheel to reach some illusory kind of pedestal, which is just a pointless exercise. And that does bring into this genetic modification of the human race. I was looking into what they call epigenetics. Certain our genes aren't switched on, and the DNA has been switched off. Now, I find this incredibly interesting because when they say we have 97% junk DNA, that's impossible, right? That's impossible. Yeah. We wouldn't have 97% junk anything. There would be no point. So is this the DNA that's been switched off, and can we reactivate it?
Well, definitely, yeah, and it's being reactivated as we speak. The sun is actually reactivating it. The sun is also reacting to the energies coming in from galactic plane, and so we are having a huge reboot, you might say, and a lot of these genes are being turned on, and a lot of the people being born now have more codons activated, and they have a whole different DNA program, so they have access to more energies. But that's a huge process in place, and it's part of the awakening and healing process that's going on. And what's neat about it too is that these other beings, the benevolent beings, have access to that kind of technology, and they're working with a lot of people and doing upgrades. And so a lot of the genetics, a lot of the genetic manipulation and some of the abduction wasn't necessarily an abduction. It was an agreed upon event where people got the upgrades, and some of them got the upgrades even before they're born. They're born with the upgrades. So DNA is definitely being upgraded, and and those that have the upgrades just don't fit into society. They see right through this network, and they don't want to be a part of it in any way.
That's really fascinating, which leads us on to different types of beings. Can you describe some of the beings that you may be in touch with at ECETI?
Yeah. I've had encounters with some of the negative ones. I've had encounters with some of the reptilian beings and the grays, the negative grays. And luckily, the benevolent ones that are watching over things here stepped in and took care of that. And they've taught me a lot of things on how to deal with that. But mainly we work with benevolent beings that are most of them are more humanoid. They look like us. Some look very different than us. But a lot of Pleiadian contact is happening here. There's Andromedan contact, there's two groups coming out of Andromedas. One are mythologically known as Archangels. They're 8 to 10 foot tall beings, and they have magnetized light bodies. And they have huge energy fields around their bodies, and when they come into this dimension, they feather back. They look like wings, but it's mainly their energy body, and they're very powerful beings. We've got the Orion Council of Light. We work a lot with them, and we work a lot with the the Orion Council of Light. That group had their wars, and they had to deal with the reptilian beings and overcame them. So that's a really good group to work with, because they understand this process of what's going on. Boy, I can go on. There's Arcturian energies that have been coming in ships, and lately a lot of Syrian ships have been coming in with feline beings on them. And there seem to be 3 different levels to that. There's 5th dimensional Syrians that are kind of a cat-like humanoid cat being. In India, they call them Narshringa. They allude to them as that. They're benevolent protectors. And then they have a 6th dimensional one that's more like a panther. It's a 12 to 14 foot tall panther, and they walk upright a lot. You know, they're upright. And then they have a 7th dimensional being that is a lion being. And these beings are depicted in ancient India. They're the protectors of the gods, and they're massive beings, and they're very powerful. And they're also very benevolent, and actually have a great sense of humor as well. But, you know, in Egypt, they had Sekhmet, and there's a picture of this being. I believe she's like 14 foot tall statue of this upright lion being, and she has the most benevolent smile and endearing smile on her face, because that's the way they are. They're not, you know, if they're going to protect a temple, why don't they have some fierce lion, you know, growling with it? It doesn't look like that way at all. So, and these are the higher dimensions that most people don't have access to and don't understand what's going on. But the higher dimensions are the ones that are stepping in right now and doing a major cleanup on this old Archon network and the other stuff. And we're in the process of this major cleanup. And I have full faith in the higher dimensional beings. You know, they will prevail, and it's in all the prophecies, you know, that this whole Archon network and the war and the greed and the poverty and all this other nonsense, it all comes to an end eventually.
Well, that is a very encouraging thought. James Gilliland, thanks very much for joining us on Windows on the World. It's been fascinating. I'd love to have you on the show again. Would you like to come on again?
Oh, I'd love to.
This has been really great. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks.
I am infinite consciousness. I will decide my reality. Consciousness doesn't fight. We don't need the bloody system. Put your guns down. No compliance rebellion. Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. Come on. Thank you and good night.
Thanks for joining us on Windows on the World. Remember, keep watching those, watching us, watching Windows on the World. We'll see you soon.
Reversal of the poles.